The Portland Art Museum's transformation is complete. Their remodel added 100,000 square feet of new or upgraded public and gallery space. I've been, it looks amazing, and I know it's silly, but one of my favorite additions are actually the free lockers for all your stuff. Pam Cudd is also screening movies every Sunday at 2 p.m. at the Witzel, which is awesome. I've missed that venue. And starting on Valentine's Day, the David Hockney exhibit is on view, which I'm so excited to see. If you haven't been to the new and improved Pam, go check it out. It's your art museum. Kids 17 and under are always free, and they're open Tuesday through Sunday. Hit up portlandartmuseum.org for more details. That's portlandartmuseum.org.
Diamore Law Group believes personal injury is about public safety, not just a settlement check. Led by veteran trial attorney Tom Diamore, with over 30 years of experience holding negligent drivers, corporations, and unsafe institutions accountable across Oregon. And clients pay nothing unless they win. If you or someone you love has been seriously injured, call 503-222-6333 or visit diamorelaw.com to schedule a free consultation.
Today on CityCast Portland, we're looking into how Ammon Bundy has libertarianed so hard he's landed on the left regarding ICE agents. We're also looking a bit deeper into the millions of unspent housing dollars the city recently uncovered and why Portland's 82nd Avenue traffic flow might be reduced to a single lane in each direction. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Oregonian City Hall reporter Shane Dixon Kavanaugh and our very own executive producer, John Notarianni. It's Friday, February 13th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Shane, John, thanks for joining me this morning.
Hey, Claudia.
I am so grateful to be here in this moment, on this planet, and in your company. So thanks for having me back.
Oh, my gosh.
Always, Shane.
5 stars.
Today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists in town, like Shane here. But before we jump into the news, I do usually ask an opening question so any new listeners can get to know our guests a little better. And today's opening question is inspired by yesterday's show when comedian Jay Fluellen came on to discuss dating in Portland. In preparation for Valentine's weekend, we thought we'd share some dating horror stories to make everyone else feel, I don't know, just a little better about their situation. And honestly, we didn't get as many horror stories as we'd hoped. So my question to you both is, what was the worst date you've ever been on that you're willing to share? And it could have also been your fault. Extra points if it was your fault.
I can go first. This is probably not only my worst date, but like my biggest Oregon fail of all time. Oh. And it is 100% my fault. So the first winter that I moved to Oregon, I went on a date to Bagby Hot Springs. Mm-hmm. It was January, and I was like, I'm from the Midwest. I know how to drive in snow. This is going to be great. I drove 4 miles up this forest road in 2-track snow that I clearly should not have been driving on and ended up getting stuck and like could not get out of the snow. And as I was rolling the car backwards and forwards, I was like inching towards a cliff.
Oh, no.
So I ended up having to abandon the car with my date, walk like 5 miles back down this forest road, hitchhike to get to like a forest station that was like a youth training camp because we had no cell phone reception, call a tow truck, have them come up this forest road with us, pull my car out of the snow. And it was so snowy that I then had to drive the car backwards down the hill because there wasn't enough space to turn around. So that was the biggest failure that I've ever experienced on a date or maybe like in any experience in Oregon ever.
You're like, in life, actually,
In life.
If I have to be honest. So no one got naked?
Yeah, no, it was very much the opposite of naked.
Okay, people got more clothed, okay. What about you, Shane?
Top that.
Yeah, it's a pretty high bar. Almost falling off a cliff.
Yeah, there's no way I'm going to top that. And in fact,
And it was my sister's car. Sorry, Molly.
Oh.
Your poor sister. That's why she put that knife in your suitcase that one time.
Yeah, this is true. That was revenge.
When you teed up this question, Claudia, I thought at first I was going to blow both of your minds by declaring emphatically that I have never been on a bad date in my entire life.
Oh.
Probably the closest thing I could consider worst date, bad date. And I'd have to rewind the clock many years to a previous life when I used to work as a political operative in New York City. This is like 2007, 2008. And I had been dating a woman at that time for a little while, and she was one of the smartest, most interesting individuals I had met up until then. But the bottom line was, or the situation was, that just the timing wasn't right. I was actually getting out of a longer term relationship that had been completely dysfunctional. And I started dating this person, but I wasn't ready for another sort of long term relationship at that time. So I broke up with her on a date. And the difficult thing about this was I don't think she realized what was happening until maybe 30 minutes into the evening, into the dinner. And I don't know, things got kind of awkward after that. And just, yeah, the stars weren't aligned. The timing wasn't right.
Also your fault. Wow.
Yeah, definitely my fault. 100% my fault.
I thought you were going to say, and that woman was Taylor Swift, and 1984 was written about me. I thought that it was going to end with like, and this is the woman that got away, but it was just a mea culpa, which, you know, we're holding space for.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, apologize to me. Oh man, your worst state, it was just sad, and I'm sorry to have to rehash that. But thank you for sharing. Shane, I appreciate it. John, you won worst state, so I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. Thank you for the honor. I would like to thank the tow truck driver, who was quite charming despite the circumstances. I am talking about ICE. Once again, I've been thinking a lot about the announcement that came out Thursday morning that the White House border czar is ending the immigration enforcement surge in Minnesota, and just how much we've seen public opinion shifting in recent weeks, just how much opposition there has been to these motions, including a man named Ammon Bundy. This is from some really great reporting by Joel Odom, your colleague at the Oregonian, Shane. For those of you who don't remember Ammon, pull up a chair. I've got a story for you. Ammon Bundy came from a ranching family in Bunkerville, Nevada, and they spent years challenging the federal government's laws with his father, Cliven, as well as his brother, Ryan. They're really best known around here for leading the 2016 armed standoff against the federal government at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. The whole idea was that they wanted to push that the government should transfer federally managed public land into local control. And they sort of found their cause in the case of these local ranchers, Dwight and Stephen Hammond, who'd been convicted of federal arson. Well, in 2016, they held a rally in Burns, then led an armed takeover of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Southern Oregon. If you don't remember this was crazy. This was like the biggest act of right-wing extremism and frankly, domestic terrorism in recent memory. They broke into safes, they searched through government files, they had this really loud, big presence with weapons, investigators found explosives, thousands of spent shell casings, and the people that were involved in this were really scary folks. They were associated with right-wing extremist groups like the Oath Keepers and the Three Percenters, who really wanted to overthrow the federal government. All of this came to an end after a standoff on a nearby highway where one of the occupiers, Lavoy Finicum, was killed by federal agents. After reaching for a loaded pistol in his pocket, Ammon Bundy was arrested. He was in jail for months, later acquitted of those charges. But the whole thing was really just crazy and fucked up and not cool. I bring all of this up because Ammon Bundy is now criticizing federal immigration enforcement and ICE as government overreach. He's been outspoken about this.
On brand.
For a while. Yeah. Not like in the federal government, on brand. He wrote an essay in the fall that was deeply rooted in religious ideology, but sort of framed U.S. history as being a nation founded by people fleeing oppression. and going on to say, quote, "The United States honors both its faith and its founding when it treats newcomers not as trespassers, but as neighbors." He's been speaking out a lot more in recent weeks, saying that ICE's conduct looks like tyranny. He just did a video interview with this journalist, Wes Seiler, and I have a clip from it that I'm going to play for you. This is Ammon Bundy.
It's crazy to me to think that people who profess that they love liberty, right? And they love freedom and they want to stand for freedom and we could get into the details and principles of that. But it's amazing me to think that they actually have been deceived or buffaloed into thinking that armed men going from house to house, dragging people out, dragging families out and putting them in prison is somehow going to further freedom. It never works that way. That never works that way. And how this has become an element or a justification for liberty is beyond me.
So, yeah, opposition to ICE from a very controversial figure around these parts. How do you feel about it, guys?
Shane, did you cover the Malheur takeover?
No, I returned to the Oregonian the following year in 2017. So I did some coverage on Malheur at the publication I worked at the time, but I was not on the ground there like a lot of my colleagues were, my now colleagues.
Yeah, I feel like at that point was when I was becoming more involved with local journalism, and everyone I knew was there and they were live tweeting. And it was, to me, so much more significant because of the involvement of all my friends and how scared I was for them, because we just did not know the extent to where this was going. We just didn't know. We didn't know if it would all end with bombs. We didn't know like what was happening. Like when John says domestic terrorism, that's what we were feeling. We're just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And it ended with the feds killing somebody. So
Yeah. I mean, and once you really dig into the ideology of some of these people, like it's not a stretch to say they want violent opposition to overthrow the government. I will shout out the podcast Bundyville by Leah Satil and Ryan Haas that did a really great job outlining just who these people are and what they were all about. It is a pretty fascinating listen into learning about some of these cultures that exist in our region that I think today aren't as like widely appreciated, but like, yeah, they're out there and it's pretty harrowing stuff.
Well, here's the thing about libertarians, though. They surprisingly pop up on either side of an issue because at their core, a true libertarian, I mean, just values individual rights over everything, hates government overreach, and anyone that tells them to do something. And that, like, you're not my dad spirit can supersede any perceived bias we might have already assigned for our, like, more rural whites. That's some rural juror stuff right here. For our more rural whites, if they are indeed true libertarians, they hate the government. That is their brand, you know?
Yeah.
And Bundy is a true libertarian. Like, he thinks Democrats are communist anarchists and Republicans are nationalists. Those were the quotes he gave The Atlantic. So before you go sending him any Antifa welcome package, he thinks we're all crazy. Like, he thinks, you know what I mean? Like, he thinks everyone is crazy. Yeah. And did you read his full essay, John?
I to say I read it
wasn't
word
that
for
long.
word. There was definitely some passages that I skimmed over, but like, yeah, I went through it.
I read his entire essay, and I got to tell you, it was hella based. I was like, hell yeah, brothering the whole time. I was like, hell yeah, brother. I'm not even Christian. Because he even had a learning from America's failure section where he brings up the Chinese Exclusion Act of like 1882 and Japanese American internment. He goes like point by point, like these are like shameful parts of American history. Why are we repeating ourselves? And it was just like, yeah, so I don't know. I'm just saying for those who are new to the area, this is why a lot of people are very confused right now.
Yeah, you know, and Bundy has expressed support for things like Black Lives Matter or defund the police or like prison abolition movements at certain times.
All of that's to say is that he's ideologically consistent and has been and is a true believer in those ideals and his causes, despite sort of what we could probably say is the more inconsistencies that we see within party politics in general. Guy's a tried and true believer who has deeply thought about these issues and has a very fixed point of view that he does not waver from. But that's kind of always been the case with libertarians, is that they can find common cause with people across the political spectrum. I mean, take a look at sort of liberals or Democrats or progressives or whatever you want to call them. There are certain libertarian leanings on particular issues, and likewise with folks on the right. So I tend to see libertarians kind of having the ability to find themselves overlapping or aligning with different political factions or groups on sort of an issue by issue basis.
Yeah. I mean, and if there is any lack of clarity, let me say it definitively, I do not agree with Ammon Bundy. I think that his logic is deeply flawed and very dangerous. But the moment when I'm finding more in common with him than the federal government is a real head fuck of a moment for me.
Well, John, thank you so much for looking into that. I know that's been a question in a lot of people's minds. We've gotten emails about it too. We've gotten just a lot of confusion about what's going on, and we're just right there with you.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, more headlines of the week. Pivot Property Management is a small local commercial property company in downtown Portland that's deeply invested in the future of downtown Portland. They're focused on building community and long-term relationships with their tenants. They're hands-on, responsive, and actually have their main office downtown. So if you're a business owner, nonprofit, or entrepreneur looking for a space downtown, or a building owner who wants local community-minded management, check out Pivot at pivotportland.com. That's pivotportland.com. Let's make downtown what we want it to be. The South by Southwest Innovation Conference takes over Austin, Texas from March 12th through the 18th. And for that one electric week, the city becomes a playground for boundary-pushing ideas, world-class networking, and emerging technology. So it makes sense electric auto pioneer Rivian is this year's headlining sponsor. This is your chance to gain real access to new ideas, people, and opportunities that don't happen anywhere else, which also includes access to the best breakfast tacos and barbecue this world has to offer. And I know they're not an official part of the festival, but it's definitely a perk. Expect the unexpected at South by Southwest. It's an experience built on connection and the thrill of seeing the future first, as well as drinking margaritas before noon without judgment. Trust me, nobody cares. And you can get a 10% discount on your innovation badge when you use our code CityCast10 at southbysouthwest.com/Portland. That's SXSW.com/Portland. Terms do apply. Start planning your adventure today. All right, guys. So for my story, this past Friday, our new city administrator, our still very new city administrator, Raymond Lee, disclosed to City Council that $106 million of unspent funds were found in the Portland Housing Bureau's overall budget. Now, at first, it was reported to be $21 million, and then they found an extra $15 million, and now we're landing at $106. So who's to say they won't find more? But if you're wondering how could this happen? How could a bureau not have a handle on their own budget? Let me explain. Prior to Portland's voter-approved government overhaul, that now includes the city administrator that is finding all this money, and city councilors representing districts, the mayor and individual city commissioners controlled bureaus. And not just one bureau. A city commissioner could control 2 to 3 bureaus. So, a ton of oversight. And they were able to keep their own budgets away from others. There was no central administrative branch that oversaw it, meaning money could get squirreled away either on purpose or unaccounted for, or whatever is happening right now. And City Administrator Raymond Lee said the city is going to hire an outside firm to independently investigate the housing funds. He also recommended a systematic review of all the funds in the city to confirm that budgeted fund balances reflect actual existing contingencies and reserves. That's a quote from him. Now, city spokesperson Cody Bowman said no disciplinary action was going to be taken against city staff in the matter. City Administrator Raymond Lee was quoted as saying, hey, these are unique circumstances around Housing Bureau funds that suggest this is an isolated incident and not indicative of a broader citywide practice of under-budgeting fund balances. We will still move forward with a process, though, to evaluate other city funds to ensure this issue doesn't exist. So to me, I'm just like, sure, I want all the bureaus to get reviewed now. Like, what the hell's going on?
I say let's keep it going, man. Like, assuming
Just
that this
keep
is
finding?
evenly distributed across the city, that means we've got like $2 to $3 billion sitting out there just waiting to be discovered. Like, let's go.
Well, yeah, we can get to that in a minute, but I was just going to say, first of all, it was good on the new city administrator to come out with just a full accounting of what was going on with the Housing Bureau, the fact that he disclosed this in great detail, and also said, look, we need to just have an independent audit to really try to get to the bottom of this. Like, that's, credit to him for a great deal of transparency and disclosure there to the city council, but also for him to suggest that this is likely just an isolated one-off with one bureau doesn't even begin to hold water when 3 days later, our friends at OPB and Alex Zielinski reports that the city arts tax has been sitting on millions of dollars in money that's not supposed to be sitting anywhere. It's supposed to be going out the door and helping schools and arts organizations. And there's $9 million in unused arts tax dollars. One of the other things that a number of city councilors have mentioned to me, including the former council president, Ilana Portal-Guinea, is sort of this belief at this time that over the next couple of years, as we continue this transition out of the commission form of government, this is likely going to keep happening, probably not to the scale of $106 million, because that's a fuck ton of money, right? Like those are some fat stacks.
That's metric, guys. That's metric.
Yeah, but even $9 million is not chump change. And I say this sometimes and have repeated it, that when you think about these amounts of money, like on the one hand, with an $8 billion budget, like, oh, what's $9 million? But I've also seen, city lawmakers and politicians just get into a knife fight over like $50,000. Mm-hmm. So, money is money, and all money matters, regardless of the color or the source.
It's almost like Portlanders are overtaxed and underserved.
I keep hearing you say that. Every time I'm on the show, you've got some anti-tax rant going on.
Well, here's the deal. I love paying taxes, but I love when my taxes actually get spent or are needed or are doing the thing. When my taxes are just pulling, and also I'm just like, is that in a high yield account? Like, is that money making money? Like, is that just, where is that money sitting? It upsets me when I feel like I have better money management than the government that is asking for this money. So I am a little sore about that for sure. I voted for the arts tax. Now I'm regretting that decision.
Yeah, and then there's also the fact that there is a huge administrative fee that's scraped right off the top.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to go there right now, but I was just going to add another couple of things for thought and consideration. The first being this whole argument of we're finding this money now because of the transition to a new form of government. Yes, probably true. And it's not like the new form of government started a month ago. Mm-hmm. We already went through an entire budget in this new form of government where these funds and this money was not even known to the central budget office at this point. And it's also illustrative of the fact that money's coming from all sorts of places. It's put into all types of funds. I think one of the important things to sort of consider too, and you're getting into the weeds and the details a little bit here, but this money comes from different sort of buckets or funding sources, and some of the money can be used for kind of whatever. Some of it's restricted for particular kind of uses because it was generated from, this fee or this tax or what have you. At the end of the day, council can figure out however they want to spend this money, but currently it's all just sort of a murky mess. And I think the last thing I'll say about this, and getting back to sort of the initial disclosure, and I think, Claudia, you were going to bring this up because my colleague Jonathan Bach and I first broke this news back in November about the initial $21 million in the Housing Bureau that was unaccounted for. And that money's a little different because that money was like, nobody knew about it. Not even the Housing Bureau people knew about it until they looked into it. Whereas all of this other $80+ million, this is money that was known or believed to be known. And it wasn't a surprise that this money was sort of squirreled away. Whereas that initial $21 million, people were like, oh shit, where'd this come from? Which raises a different set of questions than the drip of other unspent funds that have come out in the reporting since then.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a question since you've been following this. I know when Julia Fioni, our producer, spoke about it last week, she said that the city council voted for an internal investigation on the Portland Housing Bureau funds, and they were going to do it. And we were just like, that's a terrible idea. Has that changed now that Lee has said the city will be hiring an outside firm?
No. So the impetus behind it's, I guess we could call it an investigation. Perhaps it's more accurate to describe it as sort of like a public oversight hearing. But this started when that first $21 million materialized. And as more money has kind of dribbled out and become disclosed, it's given counselors who are supportive of using these oversight powers all the more reason to just like, let's get the full accounting here of what's happened, what's going on, what was the timeline, where were the lapses. So yeah, council is still planning to move forward with that based on the resolution that was passed on to create this sort of oversight mechanism for these Housing Bureau funds. We're probably going to be seeing that unfold sometime in early March.
All right, well, good luck to them. Let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, more headlines of the week. Shane, you have one hot off the presses. Is it published yet, this story?
As we're taping this right now, the story will go live probably within the next hour or two. So yeah, you two get a sneak preview. All of your listeners will probably have already read the story by the time we're talking about it, but you never know. But so the story that I have coming out, or that will have published by the time folks are listening to this, is focused on 82nd Avenue in East Portland, one of Portland's busiest and often dangerous roads. As many of your listeners probably know, that 82nd Avenue is undergoing some pretty significant transformations, both in big ways and small, that have been going on for the last few years since the state of Oregon and ODOT transferred ownership of this 7-mile stretch of road in Portland over to the city itself. And while there's been a lot of safety improvement projects that have been going on for the last couple of years, there's another real massive project that's in the works that's being launched by TriMet. They're planning to break ground on this next year, which is to effectively create a faster and better transit bus service on 82nd Avenue for the Line 72. The Line 72 is the most used and the most delayed bus in TriMet's entire transit network. And, you know, the idea with this is sort of akin to what happened on Division Street a few years ago, where you're creating sort of a rapid express bus to sort of speed things up. And there's a lot of ways in which you can do that to make the bus run faster, more efficiently, and be more reliable. But one of the things that TriMet is considering, and will be making a determination and decision soon, is on this idea, which is a bit more contentious, which is to potentially create priority bus lanes on 82nd Avenue. Now, 82nd is 4 lanes of road right now, and the idea here would be to take 2 of those lanes and effectively make them bus-only lanes, although cars could use those lanes to take a right-hand turn onto another street or into a business on 82nd Avenue. And there are a few options that are being explored right now. One of them would create these designated bus lanes in 2 sections of 82nd Avenue, stretching for about 3 miles of the 7 miles that run through the city limits. And then the other option, which is being pushed by a lot of the champions of 82nd Avenue who have really helped shepherd this change and transformation, want to see those dedicated or priority bus lanes go throughout the entire 7 miles. And yeah, people have a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings about that. And it's not a done deal or finalized, but it's certainly something that we're going to be following closely. I'd be curious to sort of get your initial thoughts or takes.
I'm thrilled by this idea. I mean, I think back, Portland 10, 15 years ago was looked at as one of the most forward-thinking transit cities in the country. And I think we can all see with our own eyes that we've really sort of fallen off from that stature. So if there's anywhere to invest public money, I mean, I think for all the reasons that you laid out, it is such a heavy use corridor. This is a system that we can trust is going to be used. And I have to imagine that this is going to have a traffic calming effect too. So maybe once you sort of compress down some of the car traffic lanes, we could see the effect of this becoming a safer street for pedestrians as well. I think it's a great idea if we can come up with the money. And Shane, I think you have some work to do to see what hundreds of millions of dollars you can uncover in the TriMet budget to make this happen. I'm tasking you with that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So what I'll say here is that TriMet already has the $350 million. They've got that banked to sort of do the baseline project, which would be consolidating bus stations or bus stops on 82nd Avenue and creating signal priority for buses or transit. That just by itself, without the priority bus lanes, would immediately, TriMet believes, speed up the commute on 82nd Avenue by 8 or 9 minutes, just with that alone. And then when you start bringing in the question of the priority bus lanes, the extra cost for those is relatively nominal. Like if you did the 3 miles, it would be like $3 million extra. Or if you wanted to do the full 7 miles, we're talking $10 or $11 million. Now, TriMet is broke right now. They're facing a giant fiscal shortfall. So even something like $10 million is money that they don't have at this moment.
Or are they? Sorry.
That's what I'm saying, Shane. Get the reporting going.
Yeah,
this is terrible because now every time any bureau says they're broke, I'm like, or are you?
Yeah. But then the question becomes about sort of trade-offs. So if you add the priority bus lanes, that speeds up a bus trip by another 1 to 2 minutes if you have the 3 miles, or another 3 to 4 minutes if you have the full 7 miles. But that's also going to slow down vehicular traffic, create more congestion. And I think the other piece here is that it will likely cause a significant diversion of traffic that normally would be on 82nd Avenue to use neighborhood streets, other nearby major roadways, or going onto the 205. So there is going to be some significant traffic impacts around the surrounding area that haven't been sort of fully studied or evaluated at this time. And I think the last piece, in addition to sort of frustrated or angry motorists who already feel that you can't go fast enough on 82nd Avenue right now because of all of the construction, there is the issue of what the potential impacts will be to businesses on 82nd Avenue. Many of them small mom and pops or immigrant-owned places. And so the potential impacts to their places, whether or not they can continue scraping by in a lot of cases, is TBD. And there hasn't really been a study at this time about what the economic impact could potentially be for 7 miles of
one
merchants
lane
and businesses. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did want to sort of understand that more. Is the concern that just by reducing the amount of traffic, it's going to be harder for people to drive their cars to these places? Or is it more like putting all this infrastructure in, having a ton of construction is going to restrict access to them?
Yeah, there's a restricted access concern, both because even though the curbside lanes will be for buses and also right turning vehicles, so cars can go into that lane to pull into a parking lot or to a strip mall plaza for businesses there, but it's a little less sort of intuitive, number one. And the other piece is, depending on where they decide to place these new bus stations, that could also be really changing some access points for some of these companies and storefronts. And then on top of it is that question, if you're anticipating up to a 25% fewer cars on 82nd Avenue during peak rush hour, which is a 4 to 6 hour period in the late afternoon and early evening, a lot of business owners have questions about what does that mean for us? Like when you're looking at a loss of that kind of vehicular traffic on that street.
I still want a study that shows the correlation of more traffic, more business. If there's a ton of people trying to get home, what does that have to do with the businesses? But I understand the access to the businesses. Like if access to the businesses are somehow impeded, yes, that is an issue. But less or more cars, I guess I'm still, maybe that's what, John, you were asking. I'm still not seeing it. So I need somebody to explain it to me, because right now I'm just like, so, It's
a great question. And I think people have a lot of guesses. There's a lot of speculation, but they don't have any kind of informed position on this right now, which is why TriMet has now agreed to sponsor and support this type of economic impact analysis that would look at these different things. And I think the ask would be, depending on what the perceived impact would be for businesses, that there could be some mitigation factors that would be sort of considered with the overall sort of transit plan. And I think the last thing, just sort of getting to sort of the bigger picture, is that what we're seeing here with TriMet's transit plan and then some of the other changes on 82nd Avenue is just sort of a fundamental reimagining of what has long been a neglected urban highway that was really really unsafe rather, and very unsightly. And, people who are supporting some of these transformative measures are looking ahead for East Portland for the next 20 or 30 years and are really sort of envisioning something that's radically different than what we even see now. And there's going to be winners and losers, and there's going to be these trade-offs. But like that bigger picture stuff, too, I think is really worth folks sort of thinking about or considering, because that's sort of what's driving this transformation as well.
Right. Well, thanks for looking into that, Shane. Thanks for giving us a sneak preview. Check out the article if you want to learn more about what Shane was just discussing. I think there's a lot to dig into. I'm personally excited for the project, but that's just because the thought of less traffic on 82 just sounds heavenly. It just sounds awesome.
And I will say that Shane's article has some graphics to it that for me was a really nice, like, oh, that's how it's going to work. So if this all feels theoretical, go check out his article. The images really help.
Yeah. Well, before we head out, we do have some shout outs. That's Shane's favorite part of the show. Shout outs from our members of our Portland Neighbors program. One of the perks of being a paying member of CityCast Portland is the opportunity to shout out a local business or organization that you love. John, you want to kick us off?
Yes, I would love to. And today I've got shout outs you can use because these are all rooted in events coming up in the next week or two. Miriana C. says Portland has a Mardi Gras. The ball is on February 14th at the Wonder Ballroom, and the nighttime parade is on February 17th on North Mississippi Street at 7 p.m. Ball tickets are available. Guys, the theme of the ball is Sea of Love.
Ooh.
Have you ever seen that Ellen Barkin Al Pacino movie, Sea of Love?
No.
So fucking good.
No, is it good? Is it?
Oh, it's a banger.
Okay.
On the watch list.
Put it
Highly
on the
recommend.
list.
Yeah, put it on the list.
Mary W. says, Rose City Reads, run by Friends of the Multnomah County Library, is having a media flash sale February 13th through the 14th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's CDs, DVDs, records, and sheet music will all be $1 or less. Proceeds are going to go to support library programming. I want sheet music. I love sheet music.
Nice. Love it.
So shout out to Mariana and Mary. When you join as a Portland neighbor, we'd also be happy to shout out all the places that you love in Portland, alongside a bunch of other perks like ad-free listening and invites to member-only events. You can join at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. You guys, thank you so much for hanging with me, going through some of the headlines of this week. I hope that you and everyone listening has a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Claudia.
Hanging and banging.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was John Notarianni, Julia Fiaioni, Adrian Gonzalez, Francisco Kilgore, and myself. Our newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drizos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound, along with Opal 99 and D-May, courtesy of Triple Scoop Music. We're actually taking Monday off for the holiday, but we'll be back on Tuesday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.